Welcome to Thriving Tribesmen. My name is Corey, your host, and I'm excited to be making this episode. So I'm reacting to a post on Reddit where this guy says on the headline, says, I give up, my LL wins. I can't fight about it anymore. And it's killing me seeing her being unhappy. And I'm guessing that's because of the fighting. So the fighting is now causing the woman to be unhappy and the relationship to be unhappy. And he says, I believe her when she says that she's just not interested in it. And I can see the love from her in other ways. I'm not throwing that away. I'm just going to learn how to accept that sex is never going to be part of our lives again. Now, this is a very sad post. And there are situations where somebody needs to accept that sex is no longer part of their lives. A gentleman I spoke to a few weeks ago, his wife is really terminally ill, and she has got some spinal problems. He's been a caregiver for many years, but he still has those desires. And it's a very difficult situation where he now feels he has to accept that to happen within his life, because he's not going to cheat on his wife, and he's not going to talk about a situation where they can have an arrangement where you can go and see escorts or something where you can just get that sort of sexual release. So again, there's some places where you can accept it, but generally where it's a healthy person who just chooses to not have sex within a relationship, it's actually unacceptable to be wanting the benefits of a relationship and not want to fulfill parts of the relationship, or at least the things that are required to have the benefits of a relationship. Now, there's an article that I read recently where a gentleman who was not having sex with their partner decided he was not going to leave part of the house. He's not going to leave the marriage. He's just decided to sleep in the back garden in a tent. So he put up a tent and then he started living in the tent. And that was him just saying, you know what, because we're not having sex, I'm not willing to be the same part of the house. So I thought that was quite hilarious. But the person that was writing that article then went on, was some sort of therapist, which those people I don't like. They said, basically in that post, they were saying, it's okay. It's all depending on how they feel. Agree that you cannot force sexual will onto your partner, but at the same time, your partner has to take some sort of responsibility for the sexual part of the relationship. If they just decide not to have sex and not give you a legitimate reason why they cannot have sex with you, and it's just based off of just feelings, then it's a terrible place to be, because there's many things I would opt not to do. If a burglar comes in and they're carrying baseball bats, I'd rather not want to get into altercation to protect my family, but I will. And it's one of those things that I will put myself in harm's way in order to protect my family, just as well as there's so many things I can point out to that there's certain responsibilities. But we're now in a society where they indulge people's narcissism to the point where it takes you away from any responsibility for anything. So again, there's a part of that that's in play within relationships. Now, I'm not saying go and force your partner to have sex with you. Now, don't get me wrong here. But I'm just saying that there has to be some personal responsibility on the growth of the relationship, and part of it is really wanting to understand what your partner needs in order for you to actually experience a good relationship. So my wife would make it a point to figure out whether I am sexually fulfilled, and will do so. If we go 3-4 weeks without anything happen, I know for a fact she's going to make some moves in order for that to happen, because she knows that it's important to me, and she takes personal responsibility for it, because this relationship is just as much hers as it is mine, and she's got a responsibility to put in some effort to make it work, as much as I will put effort to make it work. So here, there's a few things that I'm missing with this. It's sort of taking this sort of frame. So we're seeing this from a skewed frame. So he says they've been fighting a lot about it. So I think that's one of the biggest problems. The reason why she's resigned not to having sex is because the moment you start fighting about it and you talk about it, and generally when most people bring it up within a relationship, they sort of have this frustration build up. So they don't just say it when it happens for the first time, so like you get rejected and say, you know what's going on? Is there something that's different? Is there something that has changed? And we deal with it then. They generally sort of wait for a very long time, and I call this the dragon effect. You walk into a cave, you see dragon eggs, and then you panic, and then you run away, and then for the next 5 years you're wondering whether or not you should go and destroy those dragon eggs. But those dragon eggs have hatched, they've grown into dragons, and then all of a sudden when you try and kill them, they're too big to kill, and then they destroy you. And that's the same thing that most people approach when it comes to fixing a sexless relationship. I'm laughing because that was me. I did the same thing that where the time when I started trying to resolve it, it was this big, massive dragon. So now it's this fight, continuous fight. And by doing so, you're sort of creating this reoccurring fight that reinforces the sexless relationship, because you're continuously building a negative association with sex, because every time you're talking about sex, it's about the frustration that's happening because of the lack of it. So therefore, she's never going to turn around and say, okay, for fuck's sake, let's just have the sex. And if she did, you're not having sex out of a very negative point of view. So it's not a pleasurable experience. It might be for you, but and again, if it is for you, you need some additional help. That shouldn't be like that. So it has to be collaborative. It's not collaborative. She's not doing it just to make you feel happy. And it's dutiful sex. And for me, I'd rather go 100 years without any sex than to get duty sex. And it's just a standard that I've put for myself. So anyways, so this whole fighting thing is probably why she's gone to the point where she's not even interested in sex. The fighting has gone on for so long that it's over a period of time she's got no feeling towards sex, because the only thing that it leads to is some negative association. And if I was speaking to this guy specifically, I would have been saying, stop talking about the sex. Don't even talk about it. Right now, just focus more on the having fun and what that looks like, and in fact, just discovering what that looks like is fun. So I think to a certain extent, him saying he's accepted that life might not have sex, I think it's probably the best play here. It's the best play because now he's not talking about sex. She might feel the gap that he's not chasing anymore, and that being removed might actually trigger the fact that she might start chasing, because she's getting some validation from saying no. So there's this cycle of desire. His desire goes up. He expresses this desire. She says no. And thereby saying no, she feels powerful, or she feels a hint of power. And then this cycle continues. And then he gets frustrated and so on. He then brings it up. There's this negative association. So they've got this real pattern that's going on that is really bad. Now, I'm just guessing because I'm just deducing from what he's just said here and what I think about this whole entire scenario. It's something that could be happening in your relationship where you've talked about this. You try to talk about the sex or the lack of sex or the issues that are happening regarding sex within your relationship, and it's come to the point where it's a real occurring negative conversation. When you do that, it's going to make you sexless. In fact, every time you do that, it's pushing you another 6 months in a sexless relationship. I absolutely believe that. Every time you have a negative conversation about the sexless relationship, it's added an additional 6 months on that. And that's just me guessing, but also based off of the conversations I've had with many people. So you better stop. You have to stop having those conversations. And like he says, I can't fight about it anymore. So it means that it's been a reoccurring thing for a very, very long time. And I feel sorry for this guy because he just didn't know. And she's gone to the point where she just told him, I am not interested in sex. I'm completely disqualifying myself from the whole entire sex thing because I don't see any value in it, because you've killed the value by making it putting a negative association to it. So there's no value to it, and there's no value to our relationship. Which is weird, because then she goes on to show him love, and I don't know what it means when he says, I see love from her in other ways. So I'm guessing that she's a great mom, She treats him right. Maybe she's probably respectful. I don't know what it means that he sees love in other ways. So there must be another way that he feels that she genuinely loves him, and therefore that is enough for him to feel like he can just accept that, and that will be enough. And again, there's a part of you that's already been on this downwards, allowing certain standards to drop within your relationship because you lack self-worth. So when you do, again, this guy, I'm guessing there's some part of it there where he lacks a little bit of self-worth and not continue raising the bar. So you lower the bar, hoping that if I lower the bar, I might get a bit more sex. But generally, when you do that, that person doesn't put any more effort, because by lowering the bar, you're saying this is not as valuable, or I'm not as valuable, and therefore she'll see as that and never put more effort. So again, there's a few things at play over there, but I just want to make commentary on this and just cover a lot of bases, because some of you guys are in this situation, and hopefully this is going to help you to actually start looking at from a different perspective. This is one thing I can tell you can walk away with, is that stop talking about sex, stop fighting about it, stop trying to force things. And I've said it on the last podcast episode that the difference between fighting about it and selling the idea of actually having sex is that you're actually holding on the wrist and trying to force her to the destination. And when you do that, in order for her to stay there, you have to force her even more to stay there. Whereas if you lead her to the place, there's sometimes when in life, when you're powerless, when you're helpless, she's the one that's going to carry you and keep you going, because it's a collaborative thing. So there's a massive difference, and you have to start considering this when it comes to those conversations that you're having about sex. And it's something that we teach in Reignited Men, and there'll be opportunities for you guys to come on to Reignited Men. We're going to open the slots way before Christmas, and then we'll shut them by Christmas, so that when we start the new year, we're going to start the new year with a bang. So thank you very much, guys. We'll give you more details on that on the Instagram. So go to our Instagram, which is thriving_tribesmen, and then we'll be able to give you more information about that as soon as you follow. So thank you very much. See you guys soon. Take care.